Israel pressed airstrikes and shootings in Gaza on Monday, threatening to unravel a fragile, U.S.-brokered ceasefire as American envoys raced to salvage the deal. Palestinian civil defense officials said 4 people were killed by Israeli gunfire in Al-Shaf, east of Tafah in Gaza City, as residents who had been displaced returned to check on their homes. Gaza authorities report that at least 97 Palestinians have been killed in flare-ups since the truce went into effect on October 10. The Israeli military said its forces opened fire after militants crossed a so-called yellow line of demarcation and approached troops in Shuja'iyya, alleging the individuals posed a threat. Palestinians in eastern Gaza City said the line is indistinct on the ground and that destruction across the area makes it hard to identify the boundary, contributing to confusion and further incidents. Violence has continued despite phases of the hostage-for-prisoner exchange that formed part of the cessation. Hamas has turned over living hostages and has transferred the bodies of deceased captives to the Red Cross. Israeli authorities say the 13th deceased captive was handed over on Monday. Hamas said the handovers have been complicated by the extensive destruction in Gaza. Humanitarian access has also been imperiled. Israel briefly threatened to halt aid shipments into the territory and, according to field reports, military checkpoints have impeded the movement of some trucks carrying supplies. The UN and aid agencies have repeatedly warned that large parts of Gaza are facing acute shortages of food, water, and medicine. UN and aid officials condemned recent strikes on civilian sites. Philippe Lazzarini, head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, urged that the ceasefire be upheld and called for investigations into blatant breaches of international humanitarian law. UNRWA reported shelling of a school-turned-shelter in the Nuseirat refugee camp that caused casualties. Washington moved quickly to try to steady the truce. 2 U.S. envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, traveled to Israel and met senior officials, and Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife were due to visit to hold further discussions. The next phase of the ceasefire talks is expected to focus on disarmament of militant groups in Gaza, additional Israeli withdrawals from populated areas, and international arrangements for governance and reconstruction, proposals that Hamas and allied factions have so far resisted, particularly any idea of foreign administration of Gaza. Both sides accuse one another of violating the agreement, and analysts warn continued incidents risk collapsing the fragile pause just as pressure mounts for a broader, durable settlement and increased humanitarian relief.